So I gotta be honest, I did not think this day would ever come. That being the day where my Atari VCS actually showed up at my doorstep. If you remember, about 2.5 years ago, this was mid 2018, I put an order in for the Atari VCS on their Indiegogo. I believe it was their early bird special of $200, and then they also sold extra controllers like the joystick and this one here being the modern wireless controller. And since then, I've been waiting at least until this past week when it showed up. And yeah, it caught me a bit off guard when I saw them actually shipping these things out based on what we've seen in development, which was, it wasn't a very smooth development, we'll say, but here we are. Today, we're gonna unbox this thing. We're gonna try it out. I'll give you guys some of my initial impressions. Then tomorrow, we'll have an entire tech wave based around taking this system apart and checking out the inside of it with the build quality, as well as apparently ways you can even upgrade this further. So guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button, it helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. All right, so let's start with the front of the box. We have Atari VCS up here, and then there's our Onyx Atari VCS. There was also wood grain, but I decided to just go with the all black Onyx look. And then on the back, I believe it's kind of an orange plastic as kind of like a nice accent color on the other side. Video computer system, gaming plus PC plus streaming 800 Onyx. The thing with this system that really confuses a lot of people is it's trying to be all kinds of different things, and it's almost like it doesn't even know what it's supposed to be. So that'll be interesting when we turn this on for the first time. But it says it supports 4K, HDMI, Wi-Fi, and there's our Atari symbol. On the bottom, what's interesting is it does list all of the specifications right here, which includes its dimensions, the weight, the APU being used, that being the AMD Ryzen embedded R1606G CPU with Radeon Vega 3 graphics. This one does have 8 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM that is upgradable. It also has 32 gigabytes of Kingston eMMC internal drive, and there's an open M.2 SSD slot for additional storage. And then on the back here, it says an icon reimagined. Atari returns to the living room with the Atari VCS, a completely modern gaming and video computer system, blending the best of consoles and PCs to delight a whole new generation of gamers and creators. They have the Atari Vault, which that's probably what we're gonna check out the most here today, which apparently has all of these Atari games on there. PC mode, that will allow us to sideload our own OS. So I've seen people already load up Windows, so that would be interesting to test that with some different games, and I'm sure even emulation. Now this is very important. It does say what's inside. It's an Atari VCS 800 Onyx system, power supply, standard HDMI cable. There is no controller packed in here. So they're selling this right now, just this system, for $300. All right, so it's very important to realize that, because when you get this and then you get, say, the controller, this being the modern wireless, this being $60, all of a sudden for these together, it's $360. So this is not a cheap system overall at retail. In fact, if you want everything, which includes that joystick, they have a bundle up on GameStop's site right now for $400. That's right, you'd have to choose between this or something like a PS5 all digital. So clearly the price is not an advantage for the Atari VCS at $400 for the complete set, or just $300 even for this system by itself. Considering it is, I guess, a mini PC, there are gonna be some people who are like, well, I'll at least get some functionality out of it with streaming. But remember, there are much cheaper boxes you can get to stream video or even games if that's what you're looking to do. So finally, let's go ahead and open this up. They do have a nice Atari symbol there. It's kind of a good touch for the box itself when you're unboxing it to see that. And it looks like they have some of the Asteroids graphics on the top of the box here. Again, just nice little touches like that, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are buying this just because of that Atari name and what they remember from way back in the day. So to kind of remind them of all of that while you're opening is a cool idea. See, this is the first time I've seen this at all. They have some foam up here. Again, good touch for that. I do comment quite a bit on packaging, I know, but it is important for something like that. And here is our Atari VCS. Now, this is glossy on the front. Not a huge fan of that. Looks like they have a piece of plastic kind of covering it up. There we go. Yep, that is all glossy there, so that'll get scratched up pretty well. I would have preferred they just go a matte finish on the front here. I don't know why they felt the need to go glossy. On the bottom, it looks like they do have kind of rubber feet here so that when you put it down, it won't move around much. A couple of USB 3 Type A ports here. Now, on the back, we have, oh, they've actually labeled them too. That's cool. USB, HDMI, Ethernet, AC adapter, and then our clicky power button. So the console itself does have a pretty good amount of weight to it, and that's expected. It's a mini PC after all, so you'd need a heatsink, fan, and several other components inside to make this function. And I've never really had an issue with how the Atari VCS looked, and you know what? I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people bought into it, because it did look modern and sleek when they showed it off on their Indiegogo page. And I do like the kind of the orange or orangish red accent back here for this piece of plastic. I think it looks really good as a way to contrast against like the all black look that I have here with this one. The wood grain would have been interesting because in its place, I end up with this big glossy piece of plastic here that I think is the weakest part about this Onyx system, because when it's sitting there, it's looking right at you. So like just glancing at your system, you're probably gonna see this glossy piece of plastic all scratched up over time. I also like the look of the overall plastic around the edge here. It's just kind of broken off into sections, and it wraps all the way around, trying to look like one piece completely, but you can see there is a seam here where I guess it comes apart, but I think that works pretty well in taking the Atari design and trying to modernize it overall. And to finish up, I think the rest of our cables are underneath of this piece of cardboard with our power cable. This one is a 19 volt, 3.42 amp, 65 watt brick for the Atari VCS. Comes with our power cable to plug into the wall, and then our HDMI cable. And that's pretty much it. If you want a controller, you either have to buy this wireless modern controller or the joystick controller, or I'm sure you should be able to use your Xbox or PlayStation controller, considering it's just running Linux anyway. And while we're at it, let's take a look at this wireless modern controller here. It's done by PowerA in collaboration with Atari, and PowerA's made some alright controllers, so I feel like this should be okay. I also like that they're sticking with this Asteroids design across the board here, this being with the wireless modern controller, Atari VCS there, and then our Atari symbol there. We also have instructions here for quick start, and it mentions Xbox mode. So I guess this controller will also work on the Xbox. There we go, same foam padding here that was on the system. And here is our controller, and I think our cable is underneath of there, and that's pretty much it for what's in the box on that one. It is not using USB Type-C. I don't get it. Like, why wouldn't you use USB Type-C for something like this? Although, I guess they started really working on this thing back in like 2018, so I don't know. We didn't have that massive shift for like Microsoft and Sony, I guess, at the time to USB-C, but like still, it seems like a missed opportunity to go with kind of this micro USB. Also, it gets even stranger. This appears to be a like micro USB cable that's keyed to it. So it has kind of this indent right here on the micro USB cable part. And then you look in here and it has this notch that it has to slide into to sit in there. And I guess they're trying to make it so that it's like really supported. But I feel like that's gonna make it so that not every USB, micro USB cable is gonna work here. Okay, so I just wanted to double check this. So here, for example, is a micro USB cable that is not keyed for this, and it doesn't actually sit in there. All right, so if we look at the difference here, you can see it's keyed, one versus the other. However, if you have one that's small enough, like this is pretty small on the plug there, compared to that, it will fit in. So it seems like you would have to be mindful of that, whereas the Xbox One controller or even like the PlayStation 4 controller, the plug or the input here actually rests like right up against it flush. So very strange decisions immediately that I'm seeing here from PowerA and Atari with their controller. But I guess let's talk about some of the initial impressions on the controller itself. So they have the controller set up so that it has one stick that's like black, the other one's like the orangish, red that they have on the console itself. Same with kind of this right trigger here versus the left trigger. They have right bumper, left bumper. These are tactile. The triggers don't feel great. They're kind of loose, I guess is the best way I can kind of say it. A, B, X, and Y feel fine. Their start, and I guess you'd say select button are good. The D-pad is just an outright shame. It's like this disc, but it is like, you have no idea where you're pressing. I mean, they have like these dots here to try to help, but like this is a terrible D-pad. This is really like, I don't know. I guess they were thinking, oh, it's easier to roll like this. It's not. This is, that's too bad. Sticks feel like an Xbox One controller, so good there. And then the guide button, or like I guess we'll go with the Atari button. It kind of sticks a little bit, but it seems to press okay. I mean, you're not gonna be pressing this that often anyway, but like, it certainly doesn't kick back very quickly, I'll say that. It almost like feels kind of sticky. Let's hook this system up and try it out. Okay, so all of the setup stuff is done, and there was quite a bit. I had to go through several system updates, and then it had a BIOS update for the console itself, and then there was an update for the controller, which is kind of cool to see them updating this controller as well. It's sold separately, but it's good to see that PowerA and Atari are pushing updates for it. After all of that and setting up with an account, doing that, I am now at the main menu for the Atari VCS. It does have technically its own like custom little OS here over top of Linux, as we said before. And we have Atari VCS Vault, Atari VCS Companion, and then the Chrome browser. Now, I don't have anything else here at the main menu because you'd have to go to the store and go through and pick out what you want. So games, for example, we have Gun Tech, which is $24.99. I'm not sure what that is. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like a kind of just like a side-scrolling shooter, it looks like. Interesting. This is $25. That's I'm not sure if that's one that I would immediately jump to pick up. A Spearmaster. Let's see what this looks like. I mean, so the games here, from what I'm gathering, aren't like must-haves. Like, you're not like falling over yourself at your local GameStop or Walmart to pick one of these up to play some of these games. I think most people who grab the Atari VCS, they're probably going to use that as a mini PC with PC mode, which actually, if we go down here and we scroll all the way over, I think it's under apps. There's a PC mode right here, which I already have on here, but it just lets you jump over to an OS that you've already loaded up. And Windows, people have already put on here, so you could probably use that, to be honest, just to emulate games. I will point out, however, they do have a lot of streaming apps, and they also have Discord. That's interesting. But they have like Plex, Netflix, Disney Plus, Twitch, Hulu, HBO Max, Prime Video, YouTube, so on. A lot of the streaming apps that you've probably been using is at least on here. However, the biggest thing with that is I don't think streaming apps is like something you should sell a system on. I think it's a good benefit, but like we have so many like much cheaper devices that will do that same thing. And in fact, most of us already own devices that will do that, which really just makes the Atari VCS Vault, from what I can tell, like the one thing that makes this different. So let's check it out. So the way they've explained this Atari Vault is it's a selection of Atari games that you can just play, and it turns it into what is essentially a classic system then. Think of like the NES or Super Nintendo Classic, where you have a set list of games, you go through them, you pick it, and then you play. That's basically what we're seeing right here. And it looks like they have it set up into a bunch of different cabinets, which, you know, I do kind of like the look here in the setup of it, because they do look like the little cabinets. They even have like the side art and like the top banner part in it. I mean, that's kind of a cool touch to have that. On the right, they have play, gallery, and then options. So I guess the gallery, you can take a look at it if you would like. Let's see what's in options. Controls, and we do have player one. Oh no, that's using the I don't want to use the D-pad. That is a terrible idea. How do I change that? Up, okay, good. Whew. So it was gonna make me use this terrible D-pad. That would have been really bad. Okay, there we go, we're good. Okay, so here is asteroids. Have some rumble going on actually with like when I'm kind of thrusting along there and hitting the asteroids. The controller is at least vibrating. It's basic rumble you'd expect in like an Xbox controller or something like that. And Atari games aren't hard to emulate, so this isn't like particularly impressive to see on the screen, nothing like that. I guess if you're someone who really enjoyed Atari games and you want like a nice library of them, I mean, I guess, but like, remember, this is technically a $360 bundle that I'm using right now because I have this modern controller, and if you want the Atari joystick along with that even, it would then run you $400 for the bundle. I don't think I could justify telling someone to buy this for that price just to play a selection of Atari games that they put on here. And let's quickly run through the games that they have here. Asteroids, Asteroids Deluxe, Black Widow, Centipede, Crystal Castles, Gravitar, Liberator, Lunar Lander, then we have Major Havoc, Millipede, Missile Command, Pong, Red Baron, Space Duel, Sprint 2, Super Breakout, Tempest, Warlords, and Asteroids again. So Not like a massive selection right here, but I mean, if you're an Atari fan, there you go. Those are the games you have. And then I guess the other thing they really advertised was a service called AntStream. So I downloaded it on here and I went ahead and signed up for an account to check it out. And it does look like they have several games on here like Mortal Kombat Arcade, Pac-Man, Bubble Bobble, Metal Slug. There's Earthworm Jim. So they have a bunch of things on here. I believe it's all streamed, if I'm not mistaken, which is, all right, let's see how a fighting game goes for streaming. Here I am, streaming the original Mortal Kombat Arcade game on AntStream on the Atari VCS. It seems very odd because this, like you can see the compression from the streaming, but it seems weird because you figure this is a game I would just be playing locally right now, rather than stream. Usually you think of streaming, you think of like graphically intensive games on lesser than hardware that wouldn't be able to normally like play the game. Not the case here. I'm playing a game that I played really back on the Super Nintendo, and I'm streaming it on a Ryzen chipset, so it seems a bit odd doing this. Also, AntStream isn't like exclusive to the Atari VCS at all. You can play it in your browser on your PC right now. Well, I guess that's gonna do it here for the Atari VCS. The initial look, unboxing, all of that. Everything we just went over is basically what's available out of the box before you get into the realm of loading up your own OS and playing around, most likely with emulation and other things. And that's probably where the true value of this system will come out, not really with what Atari is presenting here with their store, which appears to have a lot of streaming apps, which I guess is good if you need another streaming box, but very basic looking games, a streaming service that you can get on your PC with AntStream, and a couple of Atari games. I don't see the value here initially at the $300 to $400 range unless you are thinking, okay, I'm gonna probably bypass most of this and just go right to loading up Linux or Windows on it and playing around with it that way. But let me know what you guys think about the Atari VCS, the quick look here with this system. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.